officially calling the meeting to order at 7:02. According to our bylaws, we need to have a quorum of 1/20 of our members. We have 170 members, so we need 8.5 people. So I think we're good. So Kate, you can continue with our meetings since we have a quorum. So first of all, tonight, Jenny's going to kick off with giving us an overview of primarily 2023 results. Some fiscal year results are in there too. Our fiscal year ends at the end of May, the weirdest fiscal year of all time. So it'll be clear where the data comes from. But after she does that, I'm going to share with you some of the things that the board has been doing. Specifically behind a new 3-year strategic plan and some value statements. And then at the very end, we are going to have a vote for a new person for our board. So we do have these QR codes up here. We're trying to save people. A lot of what Jenny and I are going to talk about are from the annual report and the strategic plan. Should you want your own copy or to follow along from your seat, you would have to take a picture of the QR code, or you can do it afterwards. But just wanted to let you know we have a couple copies in the back and they'll already be taken off. But I guess I will just turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. So if you haven't done the QR codes yet, I'll give you a minute to do that.
Oh, I'm also supposed to say for as you may know, this is an in-person meeting, but we told people that it would be recorded. So it is being recorded, and your voice, if you were to ask a question or heckle or do something like that, is going to show up on the recording. So
I think next year we'll have a spotlight or something too. But yes, thank you again for coming. We really, really appreciate it. We have had a really exciting action-packed last fiscal year, or last 2023 in general. And as CJ mentioned, I'll try and it gets a little tricky because for a lot of grants and for our coalition that we're part of, we have to report our operational things and our statistics by calendar year. And so some of that is, I will mention that some of the numbers will be 2023. Most of the financial data is the fiscal year. But it was hard. It was full of tons of learning opportunities. It was full of team building. I'm really happy to say I feel like we really have a great team in place. It took some time to get lots of new people onboarded and getting everyone working well together, but I really feel like we've arrived. We hit so many milestones financially, operationally, culturally, and so it's been really exciting. So just thank you to all of you for being a part of that. It's because of mostly volunteers that we're able to do this work in such a successful way, and that this, I know, is a place of hope and happiness for many animals and people. So thank you so much for your support. So the first thing that people always ask is, how many animals did you save? So in 2023, we had 901 arrivals. You can see a few more cats than dogs, but it's more or less 55, 45, something like that. And 827 departures. I thought that was funny at the moment, but that means 827 animals left for homes. Sometimes people ask me why those numbers don't even out, and I'll say because we always have animals in the kennel. So we're never empty. I know sometimes people say, oh, what about empty the shelters? You want to be empty. We really don't ever want to be empty. Our goal is to always have as many animals here as possible because we're always trying to save lives. So as soon as one goes out, we're trying to help the next one because so many are waiting for us. To get a little bit more into the details of who came in, of those 918 dogs and cats in 2022, we had a lot more dogs come in and a little bit less cats. And there are some reasons for that. With the cats last year, we did have a couple of struggles with some outbreaks, so viral outbreaks, including panleukopenia, which is something we're dealing with actually right now across the hall as well, which is unfortunately something that comes hand in hand with kitten season. And we had a little bit of ringworm, all under control now. And in fact, we're working on some improvements with the HVAC system to help with that as well. if you look at the box below, you'll see all the various ways the animals come here. So by and large, 56%, so most of the animals are transferred from open access shelters that are struggling. 60% of those are here in Illinois, mostly in Chicago, in the Chicago area. And then the rest from other states that we partner mostly with that have the most struggles in terms of the most homeless animals, the most intake, and the least resource shelters. So those are Kentucky and Texas. We also do some work with some groups in Arkansas and Alabama increasingly, but those are the states that are struggling the most. So we try to strike the right balance by helping our neighbors who, you know, sometimes in the South, they think we don't have any problems up here. We still do have problems, especially in Chicago. So we try to strike that balance between helping our local neighbors as well as some of the states that struggle the most. The other categories, born in care, returned, are pretty negligible, but we do have some animals returned and we do count them back in our numbers, as well as some owner surrenders, because we do try to help neighbors as well, people who don't have an open access shelter or other ways to rehome their pets, and we do try to help them as well. Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that Heartland was in the top 10 for the transfer partners for both dogs and cats last year, which is really notable out of 250 partners that municipal shelter has, which is one of the biggest municipal shelters in the country. Yeah, CACC. What did I say? Okay, no, sorry. Chicago Animal Care and Control.
Good, two words.
Okay, and then outcomes. So that's where the animals came from, but where did they go? So we ended last year with a 96.1% live release rate. That is well above what is kind of known as the baseline of 90% to be considered a no-kill organization. So we're really proud to stay well beyond that. And then you'll see again, 94% of the animals are leaving through adoption, very few through other outcomes, but we are transparent about the other ways. So you will see 2% died in care and one lost, stolen, and a few transfers to other organizations that we've done either for mostly for behavior reasons with some dogs. So again, really remarkable results for the population of animals that we take in, which often are animals who don't get another chance anywhere else and who have either medical or behavioral struggles that we are working to rehabilitate here. Again, you can see the adoption comparisons. So went down just a little bit, mostly again, because dogs went up last year, but cats went down because 2 months we had to close down intake and adoptions due to some medical issues, but still pretty good result. So overall, just a few highlights of our operations. There's so much to tell, it's hard. We don't want to keep you here all night. But a few things that we discovered last year that were really important for us were how are we going to reorganize the medical department? Something that the board has discussed at length is the struggle that everyone is having getting veterinary care. And so that's not even just in the shelter world, but in general, there aren't enough veterinarians out there to service pets. And so we've had to be really creative about how we partner and how we spend our resources and really try to track where we be most efficient, both financially and for the care for the animals, and put our resources there appropriately. So what we discovered was that even though we had the capabilities of doing surgeries in-house, if we didn't have the veterinarian and the medical team that we're going to be able to do at least 15 surgeries a week, and that's usually in one day, it wasn't going to be really worth our effort, both financially and even with our staff, because that's one day the staff is really pulled away from taking care of the medical part and doing what we do, our daily rounds, and making sure that the animals are getting the treatments they need because they're pulled away into surgery. And so we forged more partnerships for spay neuter. I would say one of the most beneficial, well, maybe two of the most beneficial, are with Shelter Veterinary Solutions. So those are two shelter veterinarians, and that's really important because they know shelter medicine and are really super efficient with the most up-to-date surgical protocols they started their own clinic and are serving rescues. So I always say it's a way that we have two of the best shelter vets in the state or even in the country working for us and other groups. And so we partnered with them, and they're so fast and so good at what they do. It really was worth it for us to do the surgeries offsite. We also more recently forged a partnership with Fort Paul Love, and they fly in vets from all over the country once a month to do large mega spay days. And we went last month, and we're going this Sunday, and we're bringing, I think, 23 animals this time. So to do that in one day is really remarkable for us. So we have found that that has been the better way for us to do this in an efficient and economical way. And our team really focus on the day-to-day medical care of the animals that are here and for our fosters as well. And then quarantine space is something that is always coming up. We had several rooms here that we've been able to kind of be flexible in how we use them. So the surgical suite, sometimes we need it to keep a dog who's too stressed in the kennel. Sometimes we need it to raise a litter of many, many puppies. Sometimes we need it as an ICU if someone has a contagious viral condition and we need separate space. So we've been able to use the space flexibly and be able to quarantine different animals in a way that really helps us to provide care in-house and saves us money from having to take the animals to another veterinary hospital. Then behaviorally, those of you who are volunteering who regularly see every single day, some of the little things that we do make a huge impact on the behavior and well-being of the animals. So, for example, every single meal for the dogs is an enrichment meal. So it's either in a slow feeder, they're getting the busy bags, they're always finding ways to eat in a more fun and creative way. And that helps with both physical and mental stress for them. And thanks again, volunteers are helping with that every single day. It seems like what's the difference? You put it in a bowl or put it in a puzzle feeder. There is more work involved, but it really pays off. And then play groups. We have a new shelter manager. Allison is back. She's been doing play groups at least twice a day, and other staff are learning and doing play groups. And so we've got more play groups than ever before. Letting dogs burn off that energy and just be dogs without human interference does wonders for them. And so we've been able to really ramp that up, and that's showing great results as well. And then the kitty theater is ongoing. Cats need enrichment too. Every little bit that the volunteers do to put bird food outside, to have beds on the windows, and to provide more perches for the animals to see outside really makes a huge difference for the well-being of the animals. And when they feel better, they are more highly adaptable, and people come in and see them relaxed and looking happy, and they're more apt to take them home. Facilities wise, we are so busy all the time, but I wanted to mention a few highlights. So we finally finished the new kennels in the small dog room. It looks really great. And I want to say thanks to Suzanne on our board who really and John and I mean, so many, it was a group effort, of course, but you really spearheaded that, Suzanne. So thank you so much. It's so great to see that done. It makes a huge difference. And again, we still have some flexibility with that room, because not only do we have the nice glass kennels on one side, we have portable kennels on the other side. We always want to be kind of ready. So we don't know when someone's going to dump 50 chihuahuas in the foyer. It's happened before. And so the fact that we have flexibility to accommodate them in portables is also super helpful. And then we had to get in. I don't know. It was, what do I say about
With time.
time? I have to say, sometimes it's hard to swallow because you want to use all the money for direct animal programming. So I have to say, I kind of struggle with that one, but it was needed. Thank you again to the facilities committee for getting it done, because you got to have a roof over your head. And then the driveway as well was resurfaced, and that makes for a more pleasant experience for visitors as well. So I mentioned a lot about team building, about having the right team, about utilizing their skills in the right way. Who do you use on site? Who do we use off site? We welcomed a lot of staff over the last fiscal year, and I can't say enough good things about this team. It took some time to get the right team in place. It's not easy work. Burnout is high. Shelter medicine is different than private practice medicine. And I'm trying to strike the balance of really pushing the team to do as much as we can without burning people out. And it's not easy. And so the other thing we have to do is we have to have people behind the scenes communicating all the time to let people know what we're doing and why they need to support us and what makes Heartland a bit different. So I just want to acknowledge very quickly our new team. Olga Bernard is our social media coordinator. She does amazing things with very fast snippets of video and cool music. Aurora Leon is our new medical manager. Really, really great. Open to learning, a licensed veterinarian in Mexico, working as a vet tech here. So what I always say is this was an incredible opportunity for us to have a full-time veterinarian, which is almost unheard of, even though unofficially she is not. She has that level of knowledge, and we're really benefiting from that. Megan Quinlan is our new CAP program manager. Megan, like several other staff, had been at Heartland before I started, almost 2 years ago. And as she said, she knew Heartland was a place to watch. She was so impressed with everything that we were doing in rebuilding and wanted to come back. She left to go to another bigger shelter, and she wanted to come back because she saw that we were doing exciting things and she wanted to be a part of that kind of a group. So we're so excited to have her. Amanda Rinaldo worked at my friend's restaurant, doesn't know anything about animals, but wanted to learn, has the best attitude in the world. And that's what we need, some can-do positivity. And she came back and she is learning so quickly. And it's just a pleasure to be around. So we're so excited to have her. Valeria Rivera is working so hard as an animal care attendant while attending vet tech school full-time, always willing to learn, always willing to help with whatever we need. Courtney Robinson, I wish she could be here tonight, but it's her husband's 50th. She has been instrumental in helping us build our fundraising program to really kind of we'll get Heartland to a place where we're really communicating very regularly and formally with our supporters and expanding and increasing the amount of time that we can reach out to them. Allison, many of you know her. She was here for so many years, used to be part of the board, is back and just doing amazing things every single day with the dogs. Foster, it's a family affair. He's a student, but coming in here, he was a volunteer. So many volunteers end up trying to get a job in here and doing a great job. He loves the dogs and the cats, even though he's allergic, and we're so happy to have him. Another volunteer, mid-career changer, a pleasure to be here and working really hard. So those are the new staff. And I keep saying I'm not going to talk that long, so I'm going to go more quickly. Many of you know them, but I just want to acknowledge them. Oscar Damask, animal care attendant. Edie Eisman, business operations manager, and Jill of all trades. Danielle Gordon here, another Jill of all trades, her marketing manager. Eric Gordon, working hard in the back now, dog adoption liaison. Char Morris, volunteer and operations assistant. I think she's back there. Another one who does anything we need her to do. Jenny Nogle, program assistant, working right now in the back. Abby Okrezik, lead animal care attendant, and recently taking on some more responsibilities with helping scheduling and operational things. And Mary Wozencraft. Is Mary here? That's here. No, she's got some for once. That's good. Again, always helping anywhere, so dedicated. She's our program and community engagement manager. So now on to volunteers. Like I said, the volunteers are really the heart of everything. We have so many volunteers pitching in pretty much every minute that we're open. So our volunteer numbers keep increasing. We're up to 343 in 2023 and 17,000, well, almost 18,000 hours logged, which is really amazing. You could do the math. If we paid the minimum wage, imagine what that cost. And we just keep every single quarter going up. And so it's really amazing to see. People often are skeptical. Are those really the numbers? What about people who don't come? We are constantly engaging with people if they've missed a month or two to have them come back. And if not, we archive them. But people are always welcome to come back. We understand that they get busy, but we really work hard to continually communicate with our volunteers as well. Foster homes are also really important. About 40% of our animals at any given time are spending some time in foster. We've got about 200 foster homes right now. And whether it's a field trip or an overnight or a weekend or a long-term foster, all of that is really helpful. Sometimes even just to get a dog out for a few days, who's stressed out, or a cat who needs to recover from a medical procedure, much better to recover in a quiet home. So we really appreciate it. And co-fostering is something that we've been trying to encourage more, and we've seen happen. Some people think they can't foster because they're too busy, or maybe they travel. And so if you co-foster, you and one or two other people maybe talk about rotating to support each other so that you can do it. Okay. Communications and marketing, just a couple of highlights. We've been growing our social media, so we're up to 14,000 followers on Instagram. Thanks to Justin Thoreau sharing a post about Viva. We also had Chicago Bears Khalil Herbert this year come in and choose Heartland for the NFL's My Cause, My Cleats charity program, which was pretty cool for us. And then we continue to partner with the community. So we know that our work is not just about the animals within our four walls or in our foster homes, but also animals that people need assistance with so they can keep them and they don't enter the shelter system. So there was a pair of cats here for several months, Katya and Finn. After their guardian became homeless, she had been living in a car with them and finally thought it was too cold and she wanted to couch surf. And so we took them. And after several months, she was finally able to get a place and get them back. Many, many people asked to adopt her cats. And we continually said, no, they haven't. They have a guardian. We could have adopted them out, but instead, those spots kept rotating to other cats who really needed to be placed, and they could finally go home with her. And we did that with at least a dozen cats and dogs over the past year. And it is something that we would like to continually invest in. We continue to give out free pet food and other supplies at various pantries on-site and off-site, often in tandem with our vaccine and microchip clinics that we do with Cook County Animal Control. And a few months ago, we donated a bunch of microchip scanners to the Wheeling Police Department. And the reason we did that is they often don't have places for animals to go and will want to bring them here. And so if we can give them the scanners and they can reunite the animals in the field, those animals never have to go enter the shelter system or go to a clinic and board. And so that's been really successful to partner with them. I mentioned our mission advancement program. So with a full-time person, we've been able to do so much more. We're increasing interactions. Many of you are donors. I hope you received some of the handwritten cards. And we're just really strengthening the foundation that we have. We have a lot of great supporters. We didn't always have enough time to communicate with them, especially in a personal way. And that's important to us. And then one of the biggest things, we're just about ready to convert to a new donor management system. It's a huge project. Edie has been working on the data mapping. It's kind of a nightmare, but we got it. That's going to help us even more. I'm not going to get all nerdy with you now, but it does have a lot of functionality that will make our work more efficient and more accurate and be able to track things better. And all of that's important if we want to continue to grow. So Tom later is going to give the financial highlights, but just a few things I wanted to mention. So all animal shelters and all nonprofits, especially animal shelters, rely on bequests and trusts. And so $260,000 last year was gifted to Heartland that way. It's actually lower than previous years, but we are lucky to get it. And again, one of the reasons we're investing in mission advancement is we don't know when this money is coming and we cannot rely on it. So it's great that we have it. It helps with this building, but we are trying really hard not to rely on that money. And if we don't need to rely on it, we can build an endowment. So the next time that we need to move or have a huge project, whether that's with the building or anything else that we want to do programmatically, we'll have that money set aside, ideally. We have 102 Heartland Heroes. These are monthly givers that do usually auto withdrawal from an account. And they've given over $25,000. That's a great program that's been growing every year as well. We encourage you to do it. It's very easy, and there's some special prizes for those donors. And so we're proud of that, because it kind of just, once you get it up and going, it runs itself. And then we want to acknowledge the Heartland Young Professionals, all of the fun things that you see us talk about if you get the newsletter with, the Dying to Donate and the fun fundraiser and their fun bingo night. All of that raises a total last year of over $23,000. So nothing to sneeze at for sure. And then our signature event fundraisers, we continue to grow those. The Golden Paw Gala was the biggest last year ever, right? At 116,000. Now that is gross, but I'm not gonna say the net. The net was maybe just under 100,000. Still really great. Our annual Now Slumber Potty is super fun. And what's great about that, it costs nothing. So that $37,000 is everything we raise, and it costs us nothing to raise that, because people are asking their own friends and family to donate on a personal fundraising page. And then we sleep here overnight and broadcast it all night long. And it's pretty fun. And then our Walk of Love is coming up next month. Last year, earned $13,000, and it's a very fun event, really accessible to lots of people. And we plan on growing that this year as well by adding back in that personal fundraising component. So if you haven't registered yet, I hope that you will. Hopefully we'll have lovely weather like we did last year. So now I'm going to bring up Scott Hargadon to talk about the Heartland's Promise Major Gift Initiative and this big announcement, which I just blew. We met a very important milestone, and a lot of that had to do with Scott's hard work. And so I wanted him to talk a little bit more about it.
Welcome, everyone. If you've come to this meeting the last couple of years, you've heard me talk about initially what was a building campaign, and that morphed into the Major Gift Initiative with the audacious goal of raising $1 million. And I am so excited to say that recently we can close the campaign because we raised the $1 million. I had my doubts sometime this year, because we started off with a lot of initiative, and then we sort of lost it for a while, but then regained it. But a lot of work went into the campaign. I think more than anything, what it showed was that both Jenny and Courtney's fundraising skills, when applied to an organization that had not really had any kind of major fundraising campaign before, really paid off. Because it doesn't happen without them doing the daily work. And as chairman of the development committee, along with CJ, our own chairman, I mean, we put in a lot of work, and were able to find some substantial donors for the first time to the organization, which is a very important thing going forward. But as you've heard me say before, undoubtedly many of you, I mean, we borrowed $500,000 to buy the building. We spent $500,000 of our endowment paying the balance of the purchase price and building out the building. We can now say that that money is there to pay off the loan and replenish a very large segment of our endowment that was, for an organization of this size, it could have gone the other way and left a giant hole in our financial future. I feel really good about where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. And thanks again. Scott brought in a lot of new people, CJ as well, and the development committee worked hard. We had receptions in this room, many tours, events, lots of phone calls, lots of outreach to people. And Scott's right. It's like, what do they say? Those last 10 pounds are the hardest. And so we seemed to kind of plateau for a little bit there. And that's okay. You know, not everybody wants to contribute to a building. And we understand that more people are interested in, you know, helping an animal directly, a medical fund, or, you know, maybe to help kittens specifically. You know, everyone has their interest. So we understand, and especially because Heartland never had been asking for something and had done a campaign like this. And so it took some time. But I'm really proud that we were able to do it. And again, it kind of sets the stage for this next year. I know when I came in, that was first and foremost on my mind. Like before we could even think about anything else, we just have to get a staff and we have to get them trained and we have to pay off this building. And then from there, we can really do what we need to do and expand. And I feel like now, you know, everything's in place for us to do that, which is just a really exciting place to be in. And I'd like to call up Tom Bone, our treasurer, to talk more about the financial. If you've done the QR code, it'll probably be easier for you to see on your own device. But Tom has some remarks and we do have some printouts. If you need one, let us know.
Good evening. I was thinking on the way over here, how many years ago we had a volunteer, Mary May, who would come in, sneak in the kennel early in the morning so she could start cleaning the dogs. She passed away. She left us $100,000. At that time, $100,000 was all the money in the world. We were as close as 3 months away from looking for the keys. We are in a very different situation now.
Want the light? Want the bathroom?
Here.
Okay, because request to continue at large for income, we received $200,000. I was out walking dog one day, and Edie called me. She was beside herself. Somebody we didn't know, we had no idea who they were, in New York, was leaving us, not giving us. We were named as in the estate. They weren't sure how much it was going to be. Chances are it was going to be 200,000. We got the 200,000, and I think they're still negotiating. They're still trying to figure out the rest of it. In January of 2022, we got a refund from the IRS. Again, Edie and our former auditor, John, they spent 18 months trying to get a refund from the IRS. How unusual. Okay. But we changed auditors this year. We didn't especially want to. We had a very strong relationship with Mazzoni Associates, but they decided they were going to be going in a little different professional direction. So we had to go out and find a nonprofit auditor. Now you might think that's you just go out and do it. Well, it turned out to be just a little more of a project, but anyhow, it worked. We are now with Lauterbach and Amen. Revenue from workplace giving has gone up 80% 5 years ago. Direct mailing is the highest it's ever been. We're looking at 26,000. Occupancy expenses have decreased 25% since we moved in. Well, 81% of our space. Okay. Well, 81% of our space and neuters this year have been done off-site. The average cost is $114, which is extremely low in the world of that medicine. There are certainly Jen, Edie, and I don't want to start naming names because I'm going to miss somebody. There are a lot of people keeping an eye on where the money's going to and where it's coming from. With an organization like Heartland, you got to stay on the numbers, and that's exactly what we're doing. That's it.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Tom. I think that summarized that graph quite well. But if you want to get into the nitty gritty, please take a look because Edie puts a great amount of time and detail into that reporting. So thank you. And next, I want to welcome up our president, CJ. And another big part of what we did this year is our next strategic plan. And she worked so hard on that committee to keep us focused. And I think, I don't know, sometimes maybe it seems obvious what this stuff is, but I think it is important. It's very easy to be here and just do the day to day and not think kind of bigger picture. And it's really important for us to set some goals. And so she did a great job getting us there, and she's going to talk a bit about that.
Thank you. Unlike Jenny, I have to have notes. Okay, so I do want to talk about two things that went on behind the scenes last year, because I think it's really important for people to see the work that the board does. One of my biggest goals as the chair has been to move us from being what is called in governance parlance, a founding or an organizing board to more of a governing board. And I'm sure everyone remembers my presentation last year where I talked about all the best practices that we have started doing as an organization. But seriously, being a governing board is really important, and we've been around for 22 years. And I hope that by the focus on becoming more professional, we will be around for at least another 22. So, and I think just every time I'm in this building, I think like one of the reasons we're here is because we as a board decided we really need to like push ourselves and do the things and get people on the board who could help us get to where we are today. Okay, so let's talk about the strategic plan. Some of you may remember in January that I did a version of this presentation. It had a lot of information because I wanted especially the volunteers to understand that they had played a big role in the strategic plan. But this is a little bit different take on it, but it was a really big accomplishment. It's actually still this slide. Okay, yeah, I'm talking on one slide. That's having a strategic plan. This may be like strategic plan 101, but I want everyone to understand why it's a very important best practice for all boards, nonprofit or for-profit. And there's a lot of reasons. First of all, it helps prepare us for the future and anticipate and plan for change. It helps us determine priorities, which I feel like especially in animal welfare is really a big deal because everything feels urgent all the time. And if we only do day in and day out, treating the Panlu kittens and the parvo puppies and the dog that got dropped on the front steps, you can take up 80 hours a week doing that. And without a strategic plan, that's all you would do. And you would be focusing more on the urgent and not always the important. Probably one of the biggest things is critical for funding. I hope that none of us would give away our hard-earned money or time or talent to an organization that has not taken the time to lay out what it is they're trying to do and where they are going. We know for a fact, it's a fact in fundraising, but I think also in our organization that donors will give bigger and longer term gifts if they understand where the organization is headed and how they're going to get there. For example, Scott has some friends who donated $100,000 to our Major Gifts initiative, and they never had any association with us before. And I'm pretty sure that even though they were friends of Scott's, they are not going to just toss out $100,000 if they didn't feel good about knowing strategically what we're trying to do here. And it also gives us a lot of financial security for the long run. As Tom said, there have been a couple times in our history where we have been really close to closing up. And that's not a good feeling, and we never want to be there again. So having a plan helps us achieve not just our mission, but ensures that we have the money to fund our mission. So you may know that we had a strategic plan in place, our first one ever from 2020 to the end of last year, but it was created by a small group of people, me and Stephanie Muller-Simpson, who was our former ED. And for this new strategic plan, which we wanted to do after our other one expired, the board understood the importance of involving a lot of people, all of the stakeholders who should have a say and hopefully want to have a say in Heartland and our future. So a stakeholder by virtue of their name is someone who has a vested interest or a stake in what we're doing. So we identified 7 groups of stakeholders: on-site volunteers, fosters, staff, board, adopters, donors, and community members. And we invited 12 people to become a strategic planning team from those 7 different groups, stakeholder groups. Many people fell into 2 different groups, but we had representation from all those different groups. So starting in, I think, about April of last year, we spent 6 months undertaking a very formal 5-step planning process that was developed by BoardSource, which you may have heard of it, maybe not. It's the gold standard of nonprofit governance, and it's my mecca. The biggest parts of the process were really undertaking external research to understand our opportunities and threats from outside of the shelter, and internal stakeholder research to understand what are our strengths and weaknesses amongst the people who are our stakeholders. Bill led the external research, and it was super thorough because Bill led it. And it involved everything from looking at doing a survey of local animal control officers in our area and understanding what their concerns are and what they were seeing, to looking at animal welfare trends, as well as things like the rising cost of vet care. And that was our external research. Then internally, we created surveys for the different stakeholder groups that I just mentioned. And we surveyed them about, what do you think Heartland's good at? What are our opportunity areas? Things like that. And we got about 285 responses to those surveys, and about 29 or 30% of them were from the volunteers. So that was great. So having this internal and external research, we then created a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that SWOT analysis then led to, as what Jenny said, looks like 5 really simple statements, but there's a whole bunch of work behind each one. And when you download the link to the strategic plan or have your hard copy, you can look at not just the sentences for the different 5 areas, but also some of the rationale that substantiated why these are sentences. I am going to break down one of them for you in a little bit, but I think it's really helpful to read some of the rationale for why we want to do these 5 different things. So one of the things that is also important is, this is nice, we have a pretty strategic plan, but you can't do stuff off of just one sentence. So what we have created with Jenny's help and the staff is a tactical plan that is all the things that will be done under each of these sections in order to make it come true. We had a tactical plan under our last strategic plan, but we as the board did not do a really great job of holding the organization responsible for achieving the strategic plan, and that will be different this time around. So let me give you an example of how we take a 1-sentence strategic goal and then break it down, and what does the work look like, so you can kind of follow through it. So I'm going to pick the funding goal, which says to ensure long-term financial stability in an increasingly challenged environment. The rationale that came from the research that we did said that our ongoing viability and success are critically linked to reliable and sustainable sources of revenue. As you heard from both Tom and Jenny, we have historically relied on people who have died, and we have gotten $1 million over 3 years from requests, some of which we knew about, and I think most of them we did not. So that was great. That helped keep us solvent, but that is not fiscally prudent. We also have a lot of donations coming, a lot of small donations coming from a lot of people, rather than bigger donations coming from a smaller amount. So at one extreme, we have $200,000, $350,000 gifts, and then we have a lot of $100 donations. I am not saying anything is wrong with $100 donation. I'm just saying we have kind of a range and we really need to be more sustainable, we need to have more in the middle. So, so we've historically relied on a lot of unplanned bequests and small donations. Our animal care costs are increasing. And if we really want to live out our mission, we need more money to hire more staff. So that's some of the rationale about why we need a long-term financial plan. So then what does that mean day to day that the staff is doing? So let's talk about the tactical plan then that was developed by the staff. So first of all, increase the number of new and lapsed donors. A lapsed donor is usually someone who has not donated for 18 months or so. That's one thing. Another thing is to improve year-over-year donor retention and cultivation. Again, as Jenny said, hopefully some of you have seen or gotten the emails or the notes. Specifically for major donors, there's some real specific things, cultivation touches, that can include handwritten notes, calls from the executive director, major donor receptions, invitations to one-on-one type things like that. Also looking more at very targeted and recurring grants, which we've been successful getting, corporate partnerships. And then also, even though we don't want to rely on legacy gifts or bequests, we do want people to know that those are available. So we have a plan. There was a lot of research behind it, and we have a tactical operational plan that we're putting in place to support it. And before I move on, I do want to thank the 12 people who were on the strategic planning team, which Bill called the SPLAT, and it kind of stuck, strategic planning team. So if Bill might be the only one. So I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand, but I'm going to say the names of the people who were on this committee because it was seriously a boatload of work. And some of you may not recognize because they are adopters or donors. Some you may. So if you see them, please thank them. Jenny Burrows, Teresa Drouillard, Danielle Gordon, she's right here. Gina Mansky, who's the Northbrook Animal Control Officer. David Panich, Sharon and Jerry Rush, Jenny, me, Nicola Wheeler, who's our Northwestern University board member, Bill Wozencraft, wave your hand, and Mary Wozencraft. So I just want to give that out to all of them. Before I move on to my next board governance topic, does anyone have any questions about the plan? Okay, I will keep going then to our values. Okay, so you may hear people use the word mission or vision or values. Like, what is the difference between them? So we'll do another mission, vision, value 101 on this. So your mission is really your core work, what you are going to do to, like, what are you here to do? What is your reason for being? Your vision is you do your mission well, in the future, you have achieved some sort of kind of vague outcome. It's not very specific. For example, Best Friends has something by 2025.
No kill.
No kill 2025.
Foundation.
Yes. So that's like, that's out there. That is a vision. And then there are a lot of organizations that have a mission that would support that. So we have a mission already and we have a vision. Values are then the guiding principles for which you stand. They're the ideals that you refuse to compromise on as you conduct the work to do your mission. Nonprofit organizational values are again, these high values that guide our actions, unite our stakeholders, and define our brand. They are typically communicated in terms of like a core value, like a word, and then a statement that supports it. In a perfect world, these are values that you live and breathe every day and you're doing them already. In many cases, they're not, but they're aspirational and that's okay. They are also externally focused. They're not to be confused with what many of you know of as our culture expectations, which are really internally focused and for those of us in the building. I would say that if you look at them and you compare them to the values, the culture expectations all line up with them. They're kind of a subset. We had some value statements a couple years ago, but they didn't really jive with some changes we made to our mission. So we went through a process of redefining, and I just wanted to share that again. It wasn't nearly as long as or painful as the strategic plan. This was a case where we took about 25 words that could be used as values. I looked at a lot of other animal shelters, things like that. So the board got this list of 25 values. They rank ordered them in terms of like what they thought were the most important and relevant for us to the least important. We narrowed it down to 7. And then we wrote the words that describe what they mean for us. So if we just said compassionate, like what does that mean for Heartland? It means we're compassionate members of our community who equally value serving our animal friends and their human guardians. Not just about animals, not just about people. So this is also an exercise we went through. We just actually finished it because there was a board chair who dragged her feet on it for a little while. But these are really important and you're going to start to see them. We need to put them on the website. These are very important to share externally. We're talking about how to integrate them into our hiring practices. I don't want them, just like the strategic plan, I don't want it to be something we did and be like, oh, best practice, and then we don't do anything with it. So those are our values. Any questions about that? Those, okay. Last but not least is, so our last order of business today is to vote on the slate of nominees, or in this case, slate of 1 nominee for the board of directors. According to our bylaws, we can have up to 15 directors, and we currently have 12 plus 1 person from Kellogg. So we had the room, Kellogg Northwestern. So we had room to add 2 or 3. Also, as you know, most of you know that per our bylaws, we want to make sure that the people who are voting for the board, and the board is the highest level of authority for this organization. So it's not a right to take lightly. So we recently updated the bylaws to provide some parameters around who can vote. So board members and staff members have always been able to, and in the past, it just said volunteers or volunteers who have been there a year. We did some research and we decided that it made sense for volunteers who had given 72 hours in the last year, or fosters, also volunteers, offsite volunteers, who had either 3 animals or 100 foster hours, which would be animals times number of days, fostered animals times the number of days they fostered. That those would be the people who would know enough about the organization that we think would give them the right to vote for who's going to serve them on the board. Again, a little bit about the process for bringing a new board member on board is we have a governance committee that ran the process of doing applications. The first step was also that we did a skills inventory of our current board members, looking at primarily what are their work skills or functional skills, and seeing if we had any gaps. And for those of you who saw the signs around the shelter or saw it in the newsletter, we definitely identified the need for a nonprofit lawyer. We also were looking for someone with veterinary medicine background, but guess what? A nonprofit lawyer applied. We had another application as well. We interviewed both candidates. And after doing so, we made the recommendation for the person to add to our board this year. And we took that to the larger board and we unanimously approved Mr. Andrew Hopa of Glenview. I'm going to give him a chance to talk in a second, but I'll just say a little bit about him. He has 40 plus years serving as a lawyer, working with and representing a lot of nonprofits, and also specializes in employment law, which sometimes is what we could use. He's also working towards retirement. Some people will know that working towards isn't always easy. He has served on 2 boards in the past, and those who interviewed him thought he was smart and had good critical thinking skills. He loves animals. Got to do that. And we think he'd be a really great fit for our personality. So I'm going to ask Andy to stand up for a second. Maybe someone in the back could switch the backlights on so he's not a fuzzy shadow. Okay, that's even better. This is Andy, and I'd like him to just say a few words.
Andy Hoban from the big venue. Practiced law for about 43 years and transitioning into retirement, something I can't bring myself to fully do yet. And I've had the privilege of representing frontline workers like all of you. would like to echo the sentiment and thank you for all the great work you do. Representing frontline workers, nationally, respect to the religious not-for-profit Catholic orders, which are in the field of education, healthcare, and helping her stay out of trouble. So not only doing litigation and trial work, but also giving a lot of talks on preventing litigation. What's the best policy found in place? How do you avoid things like civil again, sexual arrest, things like that? You know, really, that's no places like this. And that's,
That was not planned, I promise. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Andy to leave the room for a second because we'll go through the process of making a motion. So thank you. So what we will do, Robert's rule of order is I will make a motion to accept Andy to the Board of Directors. I will ask for a second, and then we will open the floor to any discussion or questions before we vote. If you got a red wristband when you walked in, that means you are eligible to vote, and we will do a hand vote, both in favor and against. So I'm going to go ahead and move that we approve Andrew Copon to join the Heartland Board of Directors for a 3-year term, which is our standard term, beginning in May of 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll give it to Scott. Does anyone have any questions about his candidacy? Could be the process or anything right now. How did he know? Well, as it turns out, I sent something out to, I live in a neighborhood group that has a massive email list of like 800 people. And I sent it out, and he like emailed me in 15 minutes after I sent it out. So it's really important. Like I push this a lot with the board, like get the word out, because it can't always just be people we know. That's how we get more diversity, is when we can cast a wider net. So yeah, that's how he found out about it. Yeah. And then to be fair, the other person who did apply, she also saw it from someone who put it on Nextdoor. So it definitely works, which is great. Okay, so if no one has any other questions, I would ask, again, those with the wristband, all in favor of approving this candidacy, please raise your hand. Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you. Should we invite him back in? Yeah. We'll clap for him when he comes in. Hopefully he didn't leave.
I got a couple of litter boxes I could open.
Yay. Thank you, Andy. And then just the last thing was, I know no one raised their hand along the way, but did anyone have any questions for Jenny or I? Comments, heckling? No? Okay, then this is what we have to say. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to Jenny and our wonderful staff, but really all of you volunteers, we super appreciate everything that you do for this organization. So thank you so much.
I forgot to say earlier, I wanted to introduce CJ as the governess.
The governess. That's such a sad thing to aspire for. So. Okay, so everyone mix, mingle, go home, pet dogs, whatever. Thank you, Tanya. Do too bad. What's in this breakfast?
No, mine was too long. I went too long as usual.
Gotta be good.
Oh, yeah.
I